I'd like to call the special meeting of City Council for June 19th to order. Since this is a special meeting, we have public hearings, and so we're going to go straight into the public hearing to consider the City of Morganton's budget for fiscal year 2017 and 18. So it is officially the public hearing. Would anyone like to speak to the public hearing for our budget for fiscal year 2017 and 2018? I'll call on the city manager real brief, if she would please, just to give us some highlights.
Y'all don't want to hear my 30-minute speech again? That
yeah.
kind of hurts my feelings. So we have a budget that we have proposed to you, and it is a $73 million budget, which is slightly above last year. The tax rate recommended in there is 53 cents, the same tax rate that we have today for our general taxes, 14 cents for the municipal service district, which is the same tax rate that we have today. Does use some fund balance in the general fund. No appropriated retained earnings in any of the utilities funds. The solid waste user fee is slated to increase by $2 a month, go from $10 to $12. Sewer rate increases to go into effect in order to help to service the debt and make the capital improvements that we are doing at the sewer plant. No increase recommended in water rates. No increase recommended in electric rates. Cable, the video portion, the TV portion recommended to increase in January, which is at the same time as our programming costs will be increasing, and that's a 7% increase if I remember correctly. And what else you want to know about it?
Anything in the budget for recycling?
There is nothing in the budget for recycling because we don't believe that we are going to, let me take that back. There is always the cost of our convenience center.
Correct.
In the budget for recycling. However, we are working with Simply Green and looking to transition through the year where we would do administrative work for them and a partnership. They're going to continue selling the service and picking it up, and that we are going to take over part of that administrative function.
Again, the public hearing, would anyone like to address the council concerning this budget? Public hearing is now closed. Council, I need a motion, please.
I move that we adopt the budget ordinance for fiscal year 2017, 2018.
Have a motion to have a second.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor of the motion to adopt the budget ordinance, please say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes. Need a second motion, please.
Move to adopt the schedule of fees and charges for fiscal year 2017, 2018.
Have a motion to have a second.
Second.
Okay. Any discussion about fees and charges for fiscal year 2017-18? Not, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes. Thank
I'd
you.
just like to say it doesn't seem like it should be 2017, 2018.
Yeah.
That is true. We need to consider the approval of year-end budget amendments for 2016-17. I'll call on Sally.
Now is the time of year where we go back and adjust some of the accounts that throughout the year, when we budgeted at the beginning, what we know now has changed. We'll tell you that this requires no appropriation of fund balance. There are revenues to support all of the adjustments. And this year we only have a budget amendment in the general fund, and it is for a total of $68,180. And you have the detailed information of that. We're budgeting a slight increase in ad valorem taxes, in interest that we've earned, and in occupancy tax to create the $68,000 in revenue.
Sally, I believe in our book, it says 2017, 2018 budget amendments. Wouldn't this be?
You are exactly right, John Cantrell, and it should be 16, 17.
Madam Mayor
We're
got it
still
right.
in this year
Thank you,
for 2
John.
more weeks.
That is correct.
You got it right, Ron.
Council, do I have a motion?
Motion to approve the general fund budget amendment for $68,180.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion passes. We need to consider the authorization of a resolution to apply for a building reuse grant from the North Carolina Department of Commerce Rural Economic Development Division / Project Box. Sally?
This is the program that we have been fortunate enough to use several times, and it is the program that Commerce created when we have existing businesses that are looking to expand or change their business, and they are going to make some improvements at their facilities. The state has a program that we can apply to, and so this is the program we're talking about. There is a business, local industry, located at 110 Wamsutta Mill Road, looking to begin a new product line. In order to do that, they would be hiring about 20 new folks, creating 20 new jobs. They need to do some building improvements to support this product and put in some equipment to support the product line. So we are asking for a resolution to allow us to apply for a $250,000 building reuse grant. Those dollars have to be matched by the business dollar for dollar. There is a 5% local match. So in this case, that would be $12,500. And in this case, the city and Burke County would share that local administrative match.
What's the wish of council?
I move we approve the resolution authorizing the city of Morganton to make application to the NC Department of Commerce Rural Economic Development Division Building Reuse Grants Program for Project Box.
Have a
Second.
motion and a second. Any further discussion?
Yeah, I'd like to ask a question on it if I could. What's the total, do we know what the total expenses are for that expansion?
The investment they'll make?
Yeah,
It
total
is at
investment.
least $500,000 because they have to match the $250,000 for dollar.
Good question.
And they may spend more than that. The $250,000 ties back to the 20 new jobs.
Yeah. I was just kind of thinking on it. I just wondered, I know the county's got their obligations and like we got our obligations, but we're matching this. The county's tax rate is about 26.5 cents more than the city's tax rate. Yet it would appear that the city's taking the lead on this. Looks like it'd be a little fair if it was a 70-30 or at least a 60-40 split on the 5% matching funds. Is this what we normally do this? I know.
We do, and for a long time, it has been our practice. And mathematically, Forrest, I think that you are exactly right, and I would agree with you. It has been our practice on the administrative match that we have shared in those equally. If we are doing economic development incentives that are relative to the tax base and that sort of thing for the calculation, we have always done that in proportionate to our tax rate versus the county's tax rate.
Any further discussion? Have a motion and a second. All in favor signify by saying aye. Motion passes. Next on the agenda, consideration of establishing filing fee for municipal elections. I'm going to ask our city attorney to cover that, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. It's that time again, every 2 years for municipal elections, and the filing period with the County Board of Elections begins July 7th. As always, it is up to the city, however, to set the filing fee. As you know, we have two seats that are open up for election this year, Council Districts 3 and 4. For some years, our filing fee has been set at $20, and that's what the proposal is this year, to set it from staff to again set it at $20.
What's the wish of the council?
Motion to set the filing for each city council seat to be elected in 2017 at $20.
Have a
Second.
motion and a second. Any discussion?
Yeah, I'd like to ask a question. I hope I'm not trying to dominate this meeting me
Yeah,
asking
you are.
questions. But, how did we arrive at this $20 fee? I know we set it at $20 for, I don't know how many years.
Long time.
That's a
Over
city
10
attorney
years.
question, I believe.
Actually, I don't have any idea. Perhaps the city manager can remember that.
It's been $20.
A
Seems
long
like in
time.
my tenure here, we raised it one time. I want to say it used to be $5, in all honesty.
That's the minimum fee,
Like,
correct?
and that's
Yeah,
the
there's a
minimum
minimum
fee, and I
fine.
want to say a long time ago, I'd have to look back at the history, Will,
It-
and see when, but it's been $20 for a really long time.
Marsh, we really
I-
need, we need the money.
Yeah, you're gonna get a whopping 40, well, at least $40. The maximum is 1% of the annual salary for the position, so it's not going to be an enormous amount regardless.
Well, it could go up to $55.
Yes, it could be
But,
$55.
you know, I just didn't, that's just a question. I just wondered why we,
I think it's
Continue.
fairly arbitrary.
It's pretty much arbitrary. It's not like it's going to be a big moneymaker either way, nor is the maximum gonna deter people from running if they want to run, but
well, we don't
You
get
can-
the $20 anyhow, so.
We do. Actually, it
Oh, we
gets
do?
paid to the Board of Elections because they administer the elections, and then they return this fee to us.
That's right.
So,
this is
they net it out, basically. They net all this out with what, ultimately, they will send us a bill for what the election cost, and they will net this out. We get credit for it.
But it's
Well, I
not
wasn't
really
advocating
income.
changing it. I just was curious about why we set it at $20.
just because it's always been that way, I think is the correct answer.
Any further discussion? All in favor of setting the filing fee at $20, please say aye. Motion passes. Next is the consideration of approval for an alternative design to Rutherford Electric Membership Corporation fencing. I'm gonna ask Philip Luckadoo if he'll come forward and give us some feedback from his group of individuals.
Mr. Mayor, members of council, if we could put the first slide up. This is the location, as everybody I'm sure is familiar with Rutherford Electric Membership Corporation, but for those out in the audience that may be new to this is the location out on Carbon City Road. The property, or the facility, has been there since the 1950s. It is currently expanding to enhance customer service, both from an administrative perspective and also operationally. Part of the expansion includes, and this is more into their operational yard, and it includes the necessity for a security fence. And that is an 8-foot tall fence with some sort of like barbed wire on top of it. That is, if you will recall, several months ago, we rezoned this property. It had several different zoning categories, and it is now zoned HID, or High Intensity District. And so the requirement for fencing, if we can go to the next slide. The highlighted area here basically states in the HID the requirements for fencing. And so in the front, you can have no higher or no taller than a 5-foot fence. And in no place in the HID can you have a barbed wire fence. And so the need for this, and as well as the existing, because it's been there since the 1950s, presents a unique circumstance for alternative design, which is required to meet alternative design requirements. And so what we have worked with the Rutherford Electric Membership Corporation to do is to propose an alternative design that allows the fencing that they need, which by the way is also a requirement of their funding agency. And so the language in the alternative design section of the code says that it needs to meet the intent of the code. Well, the intent is obviously to not see that type of fence. So what they have proposed, and you will see on the last slide there, is a site plan. And you see along the front, and I can't point it out to you,
Well, the front's the lowest.
the lowest
The
portion
bottom.
on the property.
That's Carbon City Road along
That
the
is
bottom,
Carbon
correct?
City Road.
Okay.
And so along that portion of it, they would screen anything, and they're working with our staff to do this, but they would, for plant selection, but they would screen anything above 5 feet, and including the barbed wire. And then along the side property, or anything facing the side property lines, then they would work to screen only that portion that is the barbed wire. And so, let's see make sure that I cover everything that I need to cover with you. So the other part of this is that they would work with our staff to effectively screen those portions that are not in compliance. And then if you're looking on the left-hand side, that is where the motel was, and they were building a new administration building and an access and circulation for customers to come in and basically have a drive up and pay their bill. There's also a new parking area in the rear, and that portion of the development would require that they meet the current zoning code. This alternative design is only to cover those portions that deal with the fence.
Philip, you said they need this fencing to get the funding source, is that correct?
That is a requirement of their funding, and then also if you go back a number of years, before they put the fencing out there that's currently out there, there was they have stated that they had numerous break-ins on their trucks, and so they house their trucks have all their tools, and they have transformers and things like that may be subject to some sort of theft or whatever. So they need that fencing to protect that inventory. And then the other thing that I would add is that they're taking a property that currently has 7 access points on Carbon City Road and reducing that down to 3. So greatly increasing the level of service on traffic.
Council have any questions for Philip?
And both the P and Z and the staff recommend
That is correct.
that you consider this suggestion.
Looks like a good plan working with them, because they really need to do this, I understand.
Yes, sir.
And council will recall that we've only had one previous alternative design. This is only the second one, the first one being the school, the new Mountain View School.
Right.
So again, the process is working for situations like this that are really unique.
Right.
I move to adopt an ordinance to the effect of which reflects the decision of City Council to approve the proposed alternative design as outlined in Section 2.2.7 of the City of Morganton zoning ordinance for construction of a new fencing as recommended by the Planning and Zoning Commission.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion? Not, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion passes. Next is consideration of an amendment to Section 2-7112 of Code of Ordinances regarding the membership in the Recreation Advisory Commission. I'm going to ask City Attorney to take that, please.
Thank you. You'll recall this came up, there was some issue at the last meeting about appointing or reappointing members to the Recreation Advisory Commission. Well, it had to be appointing because our ordinance as presently written doesn't allow members of the Rec Advisory Commission to be reappointed. It's the only one of all the many boards and agencies that the city has that had that requirement. Furthermore, the ordinance limited it to just 9 members, and it seems that a broader selection of the community might be helpful for the Recreation Commission, because we want to be able to serve the broadest possible representation of the community. Therefore, what you have before you is a proposal from staff to increase the membership from 9 to a maximum of 12, and to allow, all serving 3-year terms, and to allow members to be reappointed to successive terms. And those amendments would be made to the ordinance.
And this doesn't affect the appointments that you
That you've already
made
made, no.
on June 5th.
What's the wish of the council?
I move we amend Section 2-7112 of the Code of Ordinances to increase the authorized membership of the Recreation Advisory Commission to 12 persons, with either 3 or 4 members to be appointed annually for 3-year terms, and to allow members to be reappointed to successive terms.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any discussion? My question would be, could a person serve 20 years?
I thought about that. I just said for successive terms, didn't
Yep.
put a limit on it. But of course, if you want to limit it to no more than 2, you can do that too. Most of our boards do not limit it, but
Yep.
that's,
And,
John, how do you feel?
and this is a council appointment, not a
these
mayor.
are council.
I
And the
think-
goal is to get people who want to serve and take
Right.
part and who are willing to take part.
I agree 100% because it's, we don't have enough citizens that are on boards and committees as it is. And if this gets more people involved, I think the better.
Any further discussion? All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion passes. And lastly, we need to consider the allocated positions for fiscal year 2017-18 and approval of an updated pay ranges resulting from the pay and classification study. Sally?
Yes, whenever we do a classification and pay change, you all have to approve those pay ranges for those positions. And so we have given you the chart tonight, which will do that, which are the ones that are consistent with the pay study that we just completed and what we have talked about throughout the budget season. Additionally, you approve the number of allocated positions, and with the different changes to several positions within the budget this year, our allocated positions will go up to 321.75. I know it says 320, but that was a math error. 321.75 would be total allocated positions.
What's the wish of the council?
I move we approve the allocated position table for fiscal year 2017, 2018, and approve new pay range table.
I
Motion.
second it. And I'd like to make a comment or two if I might.
Was that a
Mr. Mayor.
second, Forrest?
He
Yeah, I
did.
second it, yeah.
okay.
I know we have some folks that are citizens that have from time to time felt like that maybe the city had too many positions and that, our pay scales were already high enough. But I'd just like to point out to these folks, and maybe I guess that just everybody in the general public, that with frozen positions and vacant positions currently, we have 51 of those. With a staff of allocated positions of 320 and having vacant and frozen positions being 51, which I think is a pretty large number. So I don't think it, most folks knowing that could really say that we're working with too many positions. And another point that I'd like to make is in the area of public safety. We currently have 12 public safety positions that are vacant positions. Now, I don't know where the general public realizes that we along with other public safety folks or municipalities that have public safety positions, they're having difficulty just like we're having difficulty hiring public safety folks. There's several reasons for that, and I think a couple of the reasons is definitely the pay scale, and another reason I'd say is the danger of the job. So we have difficulty hiring public safety folks. And then another point with public safety is simple fact that we have difficulty keeping the public safety officers that we hire, because we get them, and when we're able to find qualified people to hire, and we train them for a couple years, and then with our pay scale, they look around and they find a job someplace else that pays more money and we lose them, and we wind up paying the cost of hiring folks, but we don't get to keep them. So that's another good reason that we've looked at this pay scale. And we're proposing some changes in it, so I just hope everybody will note this, that it has been a problem, and we're trying to do something about it now.
Thank you, Forrest. Anything else? We have a motion and a second to approve the allocated position table. All in favor signify by saying aye. Motion passes. I think I'm gonna ask city attorney to talk about the meeting tomorrow for Department of Transportation.
Actually, Philip Luckadoo might be the
Philip,
better
would you
person to
come,
address
please?
that public meeting tomorrow.
I think that's
in this
important
room.
for people to understand that it's a public meeting, not a public hearing, I don't think. Is that
Right.
correct? Could you give us sort of an update, what will happen?
It'll be a public meeting similar to any other DOT public meeting if you've ever been to one, and they'll have all the maps up and staff around to talk about the project, which is essentially a widening of 181 from St. Mary's Church Road north to W.A. Harris Road. And so they'll be talking about if I am correct, that is a widening to 3 lanes. And then they'll be talking about all of the where you have the intersections with St. Mary's and all the roads up through there to W.A. Harris.
Do you know if that will involve us moving utilities? Will we have to move utilities if that happens?
I believe we will, yes, sir.
So some people may be inconvenienced. Okay.
And that
Not
is-
only inconvenience, but we have to pay the cost of that.
And
That
that is at 4 o'clock,
From 4 to 7.
4 to 7 here.
Two o'clock.
2 o'clock.
2 to 4.
Well, there's a
There's a-
meeting with public staff from 2 to 3, and then a public or 2 to 4 rather, and then a public meeting or open public meeting
At
from
4.
4 to
At
7.
4 o'clock.
Yeah.
Okay.
And that's here, in this room.
From 5 to 7 for here, yes.
Thank you, Philip.
Now, you said W.H. Harris
I
Road?
think it's clear.
W.A. Harris Road, yes, sir.
Well,
In front of the Emery plant.
okay,
Yes.
that's what I was
It's
getting
on, if you're heading north, on your right, it's W.A. Harris Road, and on your left, it's Clay Street.
at. That's what,
Thank you, Philip.
I was a little bit confused about the Clay Street. That was in some of our literature.
Yeah.
Yes,
Two
it's
names.
just on the west side of
I see,
of 181.
okay. But this is on the far side of Emery.
Correct.
Yes.
Gotcha.
Anything else to come before council? We're adjourned.
All meetings need